Welcome to the Christianity and Business Podcast, an initiative of the R.T.W. Dunham College of Business at Houston Baptist University. I'm your host, Darren Shear, and this is a show that helps Christian business leaders to integrate biblical values into business. You can get more information about HBU's Center for Christianity and Business, including the Christian Business Review academic journal, articles, videos, and news about upcoming events by visiting our website at christianityandbusiness.com. And now, on to today's interview. Well, today we're joined by Matt Morris, the Chief Executive Officer of Stewart Information Services Corporation, which is a customer-driven, technology-enabled, strategically competitive real estate information, title insurance, and transaction management company. And this company has quite a history. It goes all the way back. It was founded in Houston, Texas back in 1893. And today it's one of the largest title companies in the industry. Matt graduated from Southern Methodist University with a bachelor's of business administration and organizational behavior and business policy, and received his MBA from the University of Texas. So we got a Longhorn in the house. Welcome to the Christianity and Business Podcast, Matt.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate you asking me to be here.
Absolutely. Well, tell us a bit more about yourself and how God called you into business.
Yeah, well, there's probably a longer story there, but grew up here in Houston and fortunate to have ended back up here. Been married 20 years and have 4 boys that span everywhere from a couple in high school and one that just started kindergarten this week. So pretty busy home, and enjoy being here in Houston. Enjoy being involved with HBU and several organizations, and obviously spend a lot of time on the business side here at Stewart Title, and we made lots of progress going forward with the company, and look forward to sharing more about it.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about kind of your spiritual background and kind of how you came to faith, and then how that began to kind of drive your how you operate in the business world.
Yeah, absolutely. My story is one that's, somewhat familiar, but I feel very blessed to have it. I have a heritage, for generations of people that have modeled a godly life and painted a clear picture of what it meant to rely on God, what it meant to have our identity in Christ. And so grew up, in the church with God-fearing parents and grandparents, and that I count myself very blessed for having been kind of nurtured in the faith, and throughout my childhood. I will say, like probably, many people, once we get to college and potentially are challenged in our faith and ideas, while I consider my conversion experience back when I was 10 and walked the aisle and got baptized, and I think gave my heart and life to Christ, and that's what I count as salvation. I think there was a secondary conversion of spirit and mind, kind of in that collegiate time frame of really ensuring that this faith is my own, and understanding is it worth it, right? And understanding who God is, and the grace that He has provided, and the commitment of what it meant to look like, to be in the world but not of the world, and to make sure that we are the arms and feet of Christ, and the commission that He has called us to. And so from that time, I honestly have been involved in some nonprofit and in for-profit entities, but always in somewhat of a business context. And I've been able to be a part of several ministries and starting those. Kind of had some entrepreneurial bent, and been in and out of ministry, and also in and out of business, and those have really intersected for me And I think part of my faith journey is really understanding that God cares much more about us and whether we're using our skill sets and what we're doing where we are, rather than simply where we are. I think I have had the struggle, as probably many people have had, of should I be in full-time ministry, and am I doing exactly what God wants me to do? And I think routinely through various jobs and various organizations I've been involved with, I kind of rest on this idea that I would not have painted the picture necessarily that God has had me on to put me where He has me right now. I'm not that smart. I couldn't paint that picture, but I think being loyal and allowing God to use my gifts, and being willing to be His ambassador wherever I am, has kind of led me to this point, and somewhat of a circuitous route. And so I feel blessed to be in a business position right now, but I also feel blessed to know that my identity is not in my position as CEO of Stewart. My identity is in Christ and in His renown. And so that kind of emulates throughout what I do as a leader here. What organizations and ministries we're involved with, and how I see my family and their purpose and their intentionality. We know this is a job that requires the family to engage. It has a lot of requirements and stress and time commitments, and so I think it's important for all of us, and especially with my wife, even with the kids, to know that God's allowed me to be here, and we want to make the most of it, and use the gifts God has given us to glorify His name.
So kind of when you really started to get serious about the Lord back in college, what I found is a lot of people, when that happens, they often, one of the first places they turn is they begin to think that, okay, I'm called to go become a pastor. I'm called to go be a missionary overseas or something like that. But for you, it sounded like you did do some nonprofit work and continue to work with nonprofits, but was it fairly easy for you to understand that, what, God wants people to be involved in business?
It is a struggle, but it wasn't a huge stretch for me. One, because I had seen, family members walk their faith, out in the business community. So it wasn't a far stretch for me. One thing I point back to, and just, given the connection with HBU here, one summer during college, I was able to go on a summer project with Campus Crusade. And, during that summer project, everyone had a full-time job, and mine happened to be, pretty business oriented. And so, I would kind of work all day, and then in the evenings we would do, various outreach, activities, continue to be discipled. But what that clarified in my mind is just this kind of, Christ is not a part of my life. He is my life, right? And so this notion that it does all interconnect, was clarified, I think, in that summer. How are you involved in ministry at the same time where you're earning a paycheck, right? How are you involved in discipleship at the same time? So I think that summer was somewhat. Just a great reminder for me that I didn't have to go into full-time ministry to be effective in ministry, and that I could, do business and use the skills and, that God had given me, and at the same time, continue to do ministry and influence people, wherever I was. And I'm actually also involved, Campus Outreach, which is a similar organization, and actually, has quite a few people on staff at HBU, and they're doing a summer project in Galveston after this last summer, and had 60 college students down there. And I was able to speak to them, and was reminded very clearly, just seeing this time in life, which is so critical in my mind, of understanding kind of our calling and what we're excited about, what we're passionate about, and how faith just enables and really provides a foundation for that confidence that we have, in Christ to use our gifts and, to place our identity in Him, and to not be scared about, various outcomes, and just knowing that, God wins, and God wants us working in, all types of places, because He wants to infiltrate, all types of places. He needs people, across the globe, and He needs people, domestically. I'd say even more and more so, right? I found it always, much more difficult, in the States, and in a business setting to, be that ambassador, and I found it, a lot easier when we go overseas, and that is our job. It does come natural, but I think it's a great challenge for everyone, to consider ourselves missionaries wherever we are, and whether we are doing it full time, or whether we're employed. But that's that true identity and purpose that we have.
Beautiful. It sounded like that experience you had with Campus Crusade for Christ was really pivotal. And, thank God for Bill Bright and Campus Crusade for Christ, which now known as Cru for anyone who wasn't familiar with the previous name, for just a constant reminder that God doesn't just want us to kind of box in our spiritual activity, spiritual life into a Sunday morning service, but that it really should shine through in everything that we do in our lives, whether that's in business or in the nonprofit world or wherever that happens to be. So kind of fast forward to the present now. Back in 2014, Forbes named your company, Stewart, one of the 50 most trustworthy financial companies in America. That's an incredible accolade. So tell us just real briefly kind of what Stewart is, and what Stewart does, and then a little bit about kind of how, like, what was it that set Stewart apart that really got the attention of that auditing group that was looking for the top 50 most trustworthy financial companies in America?
Yeah, no, it's a great accolade, and if I, would, look at the various accolades from, the business context, there's not one that I think would be more favorable in how we look at the business and how we look at the value we provide to the, economy, rather than being trustworthy. We, as an organization, and I know people don't have a great understanding of title insurance, but, in the U.S. and even abroad, we are the, cog in the middle of a wheel that makes real estate transactions happen. So we coordinate the buyers and the sellers and the attorneys and the builders and everyone that is involved, and we secure real estate transactions. And whether that's commercial or residential, we talk about our mission being to enable and protect real estate ownership. And so not only do we conduct the transaction, but we ensure that that title for that individual is free and clear. The person owns the property, and there's no further liens or other claims to that property. And so as you know, real estate is a kind of pivotal foundation of our economy, and we tell our people routinely, what they do is we secure people's largest investment routinely. We secure, even companies oftentimes largest investment of what they own, and allowing that structure to happen. We have lower financing rates here in the U.S. because of title insurance than other places in the world. We have faster time to close than anywhere else in the world because of this service and this product we provide. And as Stewart, we're fortunate to be able to offer this service either through we have about 600 direct offices around the country and overseas, primarily in Canada. We also have about 2,500 independent agents that we work with to issue our policies. But as a company, our vision is to be the most admired real estate services company. And, to do that, we have to be trusted in the transaction. Everybody gives us their money and we distribute everybody's money, right? Everybody trusts us, to, conduct the transaction well. And so being that trusted third party is key to us. We, kind of always talk about ourselves as being, the protector of the consumer. And, we're in political environment, but we now have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and, they've made changes on our industry. But we go back to this concept that, if people don't trust us, we really don't have anything to offer. And so being that independent third party that secures transactions has always been kind of core to doing what we do and doing what we do well.
What would you say is kind of the dark side of the industry? I mean, if they felt the need to give these awards in the most trustworthy financial companies, I mean, there must be kind of some bad actors in your industry. What are some of the biggest temptations for companies in your industry to not be trustworthy?
Well, I think there's a couple things which you're looking at, and maybe there's some general corporate, implications that I think people, generally understand of just being a public company and, meeting earnings and making sure your financials are clear, as well as in an industry, we obviously are, significantly affected by various real estate cycles. And again, all of the money, we have, significant amount of real estate transactions around the globe, and all those funds are flowing through our company. And so, there are definitely, ways, and we spend a lot of time and attention on, protecting, those funds and putting all the compliance measures in place. And so I think when we talk about trustworthy, I mean, it really comes down to doing what you say you're going to do. Right. To make sure your financials are as clear as they can be, and to provide transparency in the information, to provide transparency to the consumer, in the process, what's going on when. We have, online portals where customers can understand, where they are in the transaction and read all the documents in advance. But everything we do is to try to build transparency in the process so that people, trust us with, again, what's the most important transaction. So I think if you look at, our auditing standards and how we, talk about those independent agents that issue our policies, and again, everything from how we conduct a transaction at the end of the day to how we report our earnings, hopefully, lends itself to this idea that, Stewart's Trustworthy is going to say what they're going to do, and you're not going to see, surprises pop up, due to, unexpected circumstances and a downturn in the industry, or, a rush to make sure we hit earnings.
I love that. And I noticed that was one of the things that struck me when I went to your website, Stewart.com, that you really just feature right there front and center this software that you use. And it makes sense now kind of what that's all about, is that it really helps the customer to understand, to see the whole process, to see kind of where things are in the process, because that transparency is huge. I mean, it can be so overwhelming for people when they're buying a house. I know that's something that my wife and I are involved in right now, and to just be able to have a user-friendly dashboard to be able to see. I mean, whenever we order pizza, we like to get Domino's, and there's when you order the pizza, they have this little Pizza Pete is his name, and they show him kind of going through the process of making the pizzas, so it's going to be done in 15 minutes, and you can go pick it up or have it delivered in 30 minutes. But that transparency in just the small ways, I think that's a great lesson for any business owners out there. Is what can we do to add more transparency to show people, not to an extent, I mean, how the sausage is made, but in a way that's really going to help them and not overwhelm them.
Right. And we understand. I mean, a lot of, what we tell our, associates is that we make the complex simple. I mean, at the end of the day, we want people to come in and have a good closing experience, and they don't necessarily need to know how, the sausage is made or the pizza is made, for your analogy, right? But there's a lot involved. And it's a very complex process when you're buying a home, and how much here in the States can attach to that property and that property record, and with various loans and tax liens and homeowners associations and everything else that can attach to this property, right? There's a lot of forms to be signed. Everybody has to have involvement in the process. But if we can, make the complex simple for that customer, that's the win for us. And hopefully, for our, associates that are on those front lines and that are closing those transactions, I mean, that's what they enjoy, right? Seeing that, especially those first time homeowners, get the keys, to their new home, and, understanding, how much went into actually making that happen. I mean, all the way from, that person, investing their first dollar for the down payment. We want to enable that. We want to, enable and foster a better, home buyer experience.
Yeah. I love it. So trustworthiness is really comes down to the decisions that you make in your company that will either uphold that trustworthiness, or, I mean, you could lose it in just one bad decision. And so this decision making is so critical. What is kind of your model for decision making?
Yeah, Darren, I think, one of the things I've been talking about this year is, it kind of gets into 3 words, but I'll just start on that decision making, is really understanding your purpose. And I think that's, I mean, there's different facets of, that word and the word purpose, but, I mean, it goes back to where your identity is, and understanding kind of long term. I mean, are you able to think, 4 steps down the process, right? And are you fulfilling your purpose? Reflect on an old, the old childhood story, Alice in Wonderland, where, Alice asked the Cheshire Cat, sitting in the tree, which road do I take? And the cat asked, well, where do you want to go? Mm-hmm. And Alice said, I don't know. And the cat said, well, then it really doesn't matter, does it? Right. And I think so often, right, and I talk to people so often, and that's that they don't really know where they want to go, right? And so whether it's your personal life or whether it's your business, you've got to know the end result that you're trying to achieve. And you have to know what that consists of. And I see, so often people seem to be short-sighted and they're just looking at the next decision, but they're not sure how it affects that end goal. And so, I'm assuming a lot of people that are, listening are believers, but even, non-believers, I think there's, I would have this, significant encouragement to really wrestle with this idea of, what the purpose is, what's your personal purpose, and, what do you want to be known for at the end of the day? What do you want on your tombstone question? And then how does that tie into your business, which, may have, more material implications and, their earthly perspective. But again, what at the end of the day, what do you want people writing about you? What do you want on the front page of the paper that's coming forward about your company? And I think that's really the purpose. And I think if we can, tie into that in our daily decision making and constantly remind ourselves of where we want to end up, that makes those decisions much more clear. When I talk about purpose, I often this year I've talked about purpose, prayer, and then patience, because I think, when we identify that purpose, sticking with that purpose is easier said than done. I mean, it's nice for me to sit here on a podcast and say, let's live out our purpose. But at the end of the day, holding true to that becomes difficult. I mean, that's challenged, daily. And so I think, understanding that you have to know, where you stand, stick with what you know to be true. And again, that's your spiritual life and that's your work life, right? Stick with what you know to be true. Make sure your purpose is aligned, that it's not about yourself, right? That it is about the end goal. And then, in order to stick with that, I think it takes prayer and patience. You got to pray through it. And probably the hardest one for me is patience, because there's been several times in life where the easy thing to do did not align with the purpose. But I was struggling with, do I have patience to hold on? Right. How do we win this fight? I think that's, so often what God calls us to is just to say, hey, you know what needs to be done. Go ahead and stick with that. And when things aren't lining up, right? I mean, God just, I think, blesses us not through, even more so just through being patient and understanding God's timing and, pointing to places in life, whether that's, college, whether that's, grad school, whether that's work, just, feeling at times that what I'm doing, didn't matter or wasn't lining up and things weren't working out like I thought. But I knew, God wanted me here and didn't feel the freedom to pursue something else, which, seemed to be like a very logical solution. But being able to rest and I know where the purpose is. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to be a patient. And when, God says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And I think that's where the rewards come in and we're able to see and blessed to see, right? That's heaven on earth, right? Where we get to see God work, where we're using God's plan, that he would use us and that he would allow us, to be used by him is the blessing that we're able to see here.
It seems like the decision to bring on this new, and I don't know how long you've been using this software program, the one that you're featuring on your website. At what point did you make the decision to bring on that software program?
It's been a while. And I think, this idea of, transparency and enhancing that closing process has for a long time been, kind of a core tenet of what we
right.
do.
So it seems like that would be a great example of kind of going through this 3P decision-making model where, okay, our purpose is to be a trustworthy company because we want to honor the Lord. And one of the key ways to do that is through transparency. How can we be more transparent as a company? And so to bring on a system like this, it seems like it would align with that beautifully. Mm-hmm. Would that be an example of kind of how you would take something through these 3Ps?
No, I think it absolutely would. Right. I mean, various decisions that we're faced with, right, of at the end of the day, we know there's, any business, especially on a public company, I have lots of constituencies, right? And, in our business, it's interesting because not only do I have kind of owners' constituencies and the public markets that you're answering for that have different desires, potentially than our customers have, and our customers, are very different. So I have, very large lenders that like certain things, and I have that consumer or that realtor that likes very different things. So that's why I think we have to be very committed to our associates, to all our customers, to our shareholders. We talk about multiple legs of this stool, and our intent really is being able to articulate what our purpose is and how we are getting there and sticking with it, and not be swayed on a daily basis because somebody wants this, and so you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is know and understand the value that you provide, and doing that well, and being the best in the market. I think whether it's business or ministry. it's important to do things well, and I don't think things have to be overt. And I don't think there has to be a Christian fish on that technology platform, right? To say to convince people that this is a trustworthy company. What we need to do is we need to act out. With integrity, with innovation, discipline, and say, we're committed to being the best, right? That's, God's gifted us, and we're going to use that to the best of our ability, to be the best we can. And we're not going to settle for, second-rate products or services or offerings. There's a reason God has given us what we have, and we're going to pursue that with passion and excellence.
I love it. Well, Matt, this has been fantastic. Why don't you, as we kind of finish up here, let us know where people can learn more about you and Stewart, and then I'll leave us with a parting piece of advice.
Okay. Well, more about me. So at Stewart.com, it's pretty easy. And you can track the company down there and track I guess more on me on that, website. And, I'm in around Houston and in around HBU and the, Center for Christianity. So, hopefully we can continue the discussion, I think, in the community, like we talked about at the very beginning. God needs people everywhere. And, I think, it's important. Often I'm asked, a lot of questions on, should I go here or should I go there? And, where does God want me to go? And my continual feedback is, God doesn't care as much about where you are as what you're doing where you are. God can use you wherever you are. So plant where you are and, see what God has you to do. He's got you there for a reason, and he's going to use you if you're open to him. In terms of, parting insight, and maybe that was part of it, but I'll probably go back to those 3 Ps and just an encouragement to myself as much as anyone else. Daily ask, are you on purpose? Are you prayerful, and are you committed to aligning your choices to support that purpose? And are you willing to wait for God's timing? I think those are questions which I routinely ask myself. Make sure we we know where we want to end up. And from my experience, everything else falls in line. Ethics questions are no longer ethics questions. Work-life balance is no longer a conversation about work-life balance. Career decisions are no longer career decisions. If you're fulfilling your purpose, if you're prayerful and patient, everything else starts to fall in line.
Beautiful, powerful insights. Matt, thank you so much for sharing your time. I know you've got a lot going on, a massive company to lead, but thanks for the work you're doing, and may God continue to bless Stewart and your family and everything you put your hand to.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate the time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if so, we would greatly appreciate it if you'd leave us a quick rating and review for the Christianity in Business podcast on iTunes. You can get more information about HBU's Center for Christianity and Business at christianityandbusiness.com. Thanks for listening, and keep integrating biblical values into your business.